You are listening to your auntie's favorite DJ, DJ Treacy Tree.
What the pie? What the pie? What the pie? What the pie?
What's going on, y'all? It's DJ Treacy Treese, and welcome back to another episode of What the Pod, the podcast that recommends new shows for you to listen to. I've been gone for a minute, y'all, all over the world, making podcasts, listening to podcasts, winning awards for podcasts. I got a lot to catch y'all up on. But for today's episode, I just want to really talk about some podcasts that I'm listening to upcoming. So I got a new Spotify playlist where I'll be dropping individual episodes. I won't be doing a different playlist every single episode. That can get kind of confusing for everybody to follow. So what I'm doing is now I've got one Spotify playlist where each individual episode will be there. So we had this long ass running list of all these podcast episodes that I've talked about on my Spotify playlist. So check that out. It's in the episode description, of course, and it'll be in every single episode. No, I think I even added it to the podcast description. So check that out when you get a chance. So for today's episode, Spotify, of course, is recommending me podcasts like crazy, right? This is why I like Spotify and why most people like Spotify is because it's automatically giving you some recommendations on things that you would like based on what you've already listened to. So Spotify Studios has this podcast. It's called Peak 2000s, and it's talking about like pop culture and all the things that are like nostalgia, of course, things that we love. This specific episode caught my attention because my wife and I were just on a road trip and we were talking about like Tyra Banks and all these other shows and how Gen Zers they jumped into our culture at a really bad time in TV. I think we heard that on another podcast. Money Honeys is where we heard that from, which is another one. Man, it's like that's gonna be on this episode. But anyway, we were talking about how Gen Zers were born during this weird time in TV, so they have a different life perspective based on the type of media that was available for them, right? This episode is entitled Tyra Banks, America's Next Problematic Fave. And we were specifically talking about it in the car because a lot of those episodes of America's Next Top Model just didn't age well based on the kinds of things they were saying. And it goes to show that, you know, cancel culture shouldn't be a thing because we all were doing and saying things that we might not have been proud of years ago. Just to read the episode description really quick for this one. It says, for a long time, supermodel Tyra Banks was known as the first black woman to grace the cover of Sports Illustrated. She was a trailblazer in the modeling world, but Tyra had television aspirations and went on to host the now cringeworthy America's Next Top Model and the Tyra Banks Show. So both kinds of media ended up being kind of controversial. I don't know. I want to check out this episode. They're talking about it for 37 minutes and 5 seconds, so I've got it. I'm not sure who these hosts are either. I don't really know much about this specific show. Clicking around. Hosted by Sydney Washington and Marie Falson. Peak 2000s is the show that throws it all the way back to the turn of the millennium to relive the most scandalous, famous, and infamous pop culture moments of the Oz. So, okay, I'm going to follow this show, hitting it on my Spotify. It seems like something I'd be interested in. I like a lot of pop culture shows, so that's one I'm checking out. Y'all check that one out with me. All right, the second show that I'm going to check out today is one that I work on for work, but it's a really good show. It's called Money Honeys, and it's technically under investing, but it's 3 women. I'm going to click here, and I don't know tons about it, even though I work on it at work. Okay, it says, here's the description of the whole podcast. Money is hard. It makes people, it breaks people, it causes stress. Money Honeys is here to help. In stark opposition to the mostly male Forbes list of billionaires, ex-BuzzFeed producer Chantel, Devin, and Freddie endeavored to break down the many barriers between you and a lifetime of financial security. Now, I listened to a couple episodes, a couple of the beginning episodes, and honestly, their personalities is what gets me, but they also are talking about money in different ways that you haven't thought about. So there is a little bit of comedy in there. It's under investing, but don't look at it as the normal like business podcast that you will. It's more of like a girls chat where they talk about money and are helping you out. So check out Money Honeys on everywhere that you listen to podcasts. And the final podcast that I'm checking out today is The Case of Regret. Now, this is a Vox conversation. They usually have topics that you can just look at and, pick one that really speaks to you. That's kind of what happened with this one. It was recommended to me by Podyssey. So, hey, if you're listening to my podcast and you want to find more podcasts to listen to, and that's why you're listening to this one, a good place that I get my podcast from is actually Podyssey. It's an app where you can get curated podcasts, but a lot of people can go in there and like listen to an episode and then review it. So you also have some feedback in there, but they also send out these weekly picks that give you some pretty good podcasts to listen to. So shouts out to Podyssey. Check it out if you get a chance. But this episode is called The Case for Regret. Sean Illing talks with writer Daniel Pink about his book, The Power of Regret. They discuss why regret can be not only useful, but potentially the most valuable emotion that we have. Daniel and Sean talk about the difference between regret and wallowing, how to anticipate regrets and act accordingly. And Daniel shares his findings on the regrets that Americans most have in common. Okay, this one seems like it's gonna speak to me because I'm always looking for brain hacks on how to trick your brain into using emotions that you are already gonna have into getting a desired outcome. So I'm sure that regret plays a huge part in the decision making of this is what I want to do, this is not what I want to do, is this a good move for me kind of thing. So I want to know how I can take that and kind of hack it and use it. Sounds like an interesting conversation to have. It's only 46 minutes and 41 seconds. Not sure how far I'm going to get in that, but hey, check it out. So today I'm checking out Peak 2000s, Tyra Banks, America's Next Problematic Fave. I'm checking out Single versus Married, The Price of Marriage with Money Honeys. And I am checking out The Case for Regret from Vox Conversations. You can check out this list in my Spotify, so check the link below. I've got a lot of goodies in there. Make sure you follow me on TikTok. I'm gonna be doing short bits of this same information on TikTok, kind of blowing up there. So if you haven't followed me already, check me out there. And I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of What the Pod. Welcome back, y'all.